I am California of the past.
I am California of the past. I am California of the past.
I'm here just to remember my father, who was Professor Henry S. Tatsumi, and he was a professor at the University of Washington from 1928 to 41, and then served as an instructor, teacher trainer, and helped develop the program for the Japanese language program at the U.S. Navy Language School, University of Colorado, Boulder. Just to give you a little bit of his background, he was born in 1896 to a father who moved all over the place. So he remembers moving over 20 times before he was 10. And after that, he didn't keep track. Unfortunately, during that time, he experienced a lot of anti-Japanese sentiment. He was born in San Francisco. There was a lot of anti-Asian feeling there. Later, the family that had a store in San Francisco was burned out by the San Francisco fire and earthquake. They eventually went back to Japan and went to school there. In those days, they thought the Japanese education was superior to the American education. And in truth, in the American education available to them, there was a great deal of discrimination, so it may have been part of the problem. When he went to Japan with his father, he went to public school by day and at night studied Chinese, the classics, and practiced Zen meditation. In 1912, he returned to help support his family and studied voice and piano, and later enlisted when World War I broke out. He was one of the first two Nisei. His brother Alfred also volunteered for the Army in World War I. He had a lot of careers before he became a professor, but he realized that he was really more interested in U.S.-Japan relations. And while he was still getting his master's, I think, he began teaching. And he taught Japanese from 1928 to 41 until war broke out. And then things were interrupted by the Executive Order 9066 and the need to either evacuate or, in this case, join the MIS as a language teacher. He became the head instructor at the Navy Language School in Boulder, Colorado. And he developed a system which he had begun at the University of Washington earlier for showing the whole language on a chart. It was like showing the picture of the elephant instead of just starting with a tail or an ear. He thought that was part of the reason it was so hard for Westerners to learn Japanese. He went to a meeting at Cornell University that was a private meeting with just linguists, and they were talking about how they were going to address the problem of needing to know Japanese, having officers, military officers from Army, Navy, and also other MIS like interrogators and translators. And a gentleman from Harvard who taught said that it was really impossible. And at first people just listened. And after a while, my father and a couple other people from the University of Washington who had been teaching Japanese for several years got rather upset, and my father jumped up and said, I can do it. The Navy Japanese language school was made up of 138 Japanese Americans who served as teachers and instructors between August 1941 and July of 1946. They made extraordinary contributions to the U.S. Navy's war against Japan. They were patriotic and loyal, proven by their exemplary work while teaching at the language school. They were dedicated teachers who performed their duties with quiet dignity in the face of adversity, working long hours for the same government that had placed their families and friends in internment camps. These men and women helped fashion innovative methods of teaching the essentials of reading, writing, and speaking one of the world's most complex languages within a 12 to 14-month period. Through their conscientiousness and dedication, the students were introduced to the essentials of Japanese culture as well as language, providing knowledge vital for these officers' future success as code breakers, translators, combat interrogators, and occupiers of defeated Japan. They gave students a perspective on Japan, its people, and culture that disarmed prejudice and helped make these language officers more effective both in combat and in relations with the Japanese in post-war Japan.